Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the grinds and the systems of World of Warcraft. Now this is a issue that I'm very passionate about, and I've spoke about in parts before, but this is something that's like really hot button right now with 9.2 on the horizon, and with every patch it ends up being a thing, but it's usually the biggest thing when the game actually isn't in a terrible state where it currently is, which 9.1.5, like if you've kept up through the whole cycle of Shadowlands, is actually not in a very bad state. You can do your alts fairly easily right now at this moment and stuff like that. And so generally what happens at that point, at that stage of a expansion, is we start complaining about the systems, the grind, and with the new patch on the horizon, that's especially so. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this, why some of the complaints are completely valid, and why I think people just miss the mark a little bit, even when some of their complaints are valid. Why they don't necessarily get to the what I think would be the correct solution. So number one thing is and I've said this before, but you absolutely cannot, and I think like Max from Liquid has also said this. You cannot make the game. He says, specifically about him, you cannot make the game around World First Raiders. It'd just be a crappy game for everyone else. If you did that, that doesn't do that. I would say, just in general, you can't make the game around the high end community. That's PvP, that's Mythic Plus, that's World First. That's people who are super serious about pet battles, super serious about collecting, and will literally run old dungeons and stuff for 8 hours a day. That's high end collecting, So people with like 30,000 achievement points or whatever, like you can't make the game around them because that's such a small number of people, and they typically actually love the game. They love the actual content that they do in the game. And so they hate the systems because they feel like that's a chore they have to do to actually go do the part of the game that they want to do, right? And what we need to focus on here is the people that where the system is part of the game for them. That's part of the game because they only have so much time to play. They're never going to do the high end content. They're never going to collect everything. They're never going to get all the achievement points. What they're going to do is play for a while, have a little bit of fun, assuming they get to interact with the systems. And I've said this before, too many new players or returning players don't actually get to interact with the systems, which is actually a huge tragedy. Now I'll get into an example of that coming up. I believe it was Venruki had actually a really nice video about this for Shadowlands, an example of a guy trying to play, but there were so many things he had to do to play that he just gave up and quit. And my example is very similar to that. What I think is World of Warcraft, for better or worse, I actually kind of like it, but it's kind of a seasonal game now. I like it because I like to play other games too, so I don't mind, that it's seasonal. You can take a nice little break between patches or whatever and do something else. But so I don't mind that it's seasonal, but some people do, and that's fine. There's good reasons to not like that it's seasonal. And it seems like the devs and World of Warcraft in general, whatever, have completely leaned into it being seasonal. But there's one issue, and that is compounding the systems on top of each other. So basically, to play in 9.2, you still will have had to have participated somewhat in like a 9.0 system that's not really relevant anymore, or at least like a 9.1 system that's not really relevant anymore. This has just been the case, for at least the near past. I can't remember exactly when that started, but it's been a while that it's been like this, where you have to compound these systems on top of each other, which makes it really hard to come in and out of the game. But it's a seasonal game now, so people are definitely going to be coming in and out more than ever. So it's a little bit rough when you have to go back and do the old stuff on top of the new stuff. So what the high end community tends to say is just get rid of all the grinds, get rid of all the systems, and just let us play. Because they like to play the game, and that's commendable, man. Like they want to do their Mythic Plus. They want to just push plus 30s without having to go to Korthia. They want to just do World First Rating without having to go to Zereth Mortis, and they want to do all this stuff. And that's fine. I love that they love the game, and that's why I don't hate on them or think negatively of them or anything like that. They just want to play the game and enjoy it. But it's important to know that most people aren't doing those things, and most people aren't having as much fun as them in those things. And if it is, it's just for a little bit of a time before they get to like a skill cap or something like that, depending on what the content is, or just not having time in the day to do the thing that they need to do, like collecting and stuff. Collecting is not really, you use add-ons and time management for as a skill for sure, but like not like what we would normally think of as a skill, like a PvP skill of like quick reactions and having all your buttons memorized, like 50 buttons memorized and stuff like that. That's a little bit more of a mental acuity skill in my opinion. So they're just not going to have that. They're not going to do that. So the system is kind of important. It feels rewarding for kind of like an average player to just go through a system and then get the thing. So like if you were a blacksmith, you're just an average player, you've always been a blacksmith. In 9.0, maybe you farm the stuff out, you craft your legendary yourself, you get it, you upgrade it, great. It feels awesome. You've upgraded your legendary all the way up yourself, and you have this thing, and it feels really cool that you have it. You worked really hard for it. You take a break in 9.1, before 9.1, don't come back for 9.1, come back for 9.2. You realize you have to redo all that. All of a sudden, it doesn't feel so good anymore because you've added steps on top of that. My point in that is that the initial system isn't bad. That can be rewarding for a player that's not going to play much. For a player who's just going to get that legendary and then either queue for random battlegrounds, queue for random dungeons, maybe do a normal raid, just normal raid on normal, stuff like that. It's a rewarding thing for them just to craft their legendary and get it. Now, you just can't add stuff on top of that, right? Because that's what it is. Now, in this current expansion, the Maw was actually way too punishing for casual players, in my opinion, and it wasn't really realistic for them to want to grind out conduits in the Maw, and therefore they weren't going to interact with that system. That's the number one issue, is people not even interacting with the systems that are like average or new or returning players. They don't even interact with them because they're so inconvenient sometimes, and a lot of times it's because they have to go back. But in this expansion, it was the very first thing. In 9.0, the Maw was very inconvenient. No new player liked it. No returning player liked it, and it wasn't fun to grind out your conduits there. And when I say no, I know I'm being hyperbolic. Okay, if you liked it, that's fine. I'm not judging you. I mean, I thought it was fine too. Again, doing it once, I thought it was fine. I'm gonna play each patch anyway, so I'm not gonna like miss a patch generally unless something terrible happens. So they all feel fine to me because I'm not compounding. I'm just doing the next one. Once you skip one, that becomes an issue, and then you have to do two to catch up. That's when it becomes an issue. So I do want to get into an example really quick. Like I said, Venruke had a really nice example with a PvP one that he had experienced. But I had a couple friends. I might have been like 3 or 4 friends who were actually interested in coming back in World of Warcraft during Battle for Azeroth, during the corruption, when the corruption was active. And because they thought it was really cool. They saw videos like Twilight Devastation and stuff like, oh, this is sweet. I want to come back and try this. And so they resubbed to the game and stuff. And I was, trying to help them get back into it, like you do with your friends that come back or whatever. And I was like, okay, well, you have to do these visions. I can do these with you. We can go through them best we can. Now, this is time gated, though. You can't get enough of these vessels to run them all the time. So that becomes an issue right there, is that coming in late to the patch, there was no way to get like just a bunch of extra vessels. Maybe they should have been easier to acquire as the patch came on, because again, if you started right at the beginning of 8.3, vessels were fine. You probably had more than enough, more than you ever needed. But if you came back late, that's not the case. So over time, there should have been a way to get more vessels, or over time, it should have just not cost a vessel anymore to go in, and you can just go in as many times as you want. 6 to 8 weeks, let's say, and that'll be my general number where I say to do the catch up. Like 6 to 8 weeks into a patch, maybe even just a month, maybe 4 weeks into a patch, but somewhere in there. I don't know where the number is. You just allow people to interact things and no longer make them time gated. I understand why the initial time gating exists, and I'm not actually against that like many people are, but I just would like to see that be removed over time. So they come back, they can't do all the visions right away, so we're slowly grinding these things out. They have to go do their dailies and stuff, and to an extent that's fine. They did do them a little bit, and then they have to do their visions. But then it got to the point I'm like, well, wait, do you have your essences from 8.2? Now, if you don't remember essences in 8.2, some of those were pretty large grinds, especially like you look up what your best ones are. Oh, your best one happens to be a PvP one, and you have to grind crap ton of honor to get this thing. And so now they're like, well, now I have to do essences too. And then there was something, and then just like their neck level was really low. There was catch ups on neck level, to be fair to Blizzard. But there was something else too besides the essences. But the essences were the big one. I remember. So then they just gave up, right? Same thing with Venruki. Like once they realized all they were going to have to do to actually have fun with the corruption system, to actually have fun, with Twilight dev procs. Once they realized what they were going to have to do, they just didn't want to do it. And frankly, how could I blame them for that? Because it was really, really inconvenient. And I saw it firsthand. I'm in their Discord, and I'm just like, man, this sucks for them. I wouldn't do this either. If I were them, I wouldn't want to do it. So, generally, so what I'm going to get at is I've already mentioned the compounding of systems is the issue, that you have to continually do the system. Now, what Warcraft developers will say is they don't want to invalidate what people worked really hard on to complete the patch before, right? But there's one major issue with that, and it's going to take time. But I think if we were all on the same page, I think it would really help, honestly, if we could all be giving them the same message. And that's this: WoW is now a seasonal game, for better or worse. And with each patch, our gear from the last patch is invalidated. The raid tier from the last patch is invalidated. The normal or the heroic raid, whatever, is higher item level than the mythic raid of the previous tier. It's completely invalidated. You can now get better gear from a way easier boss, skill-wise, right? And so everything's invalidated already. We're already invalidated every single patch, and I'm fine with that. Like I said, I don't mind the seasonal thing. I like taking breaks. I don't want to feel like I have to keep playing constantly to try to get that last trinket from a raid that came out a year and a half ago or something. Like if I was still farming Castle Nathria for a trinket, I would feel awful, and I would feel like I could never stop playing. And that's just me though, right? But so after so everything's invalidated already. Everything's already invalidated, and you just have to realize that. And as players, we're just gonna have to suck it up. Those of us who did grind them all and then did grind Korthia, we're gonna have to just suck it up. That new and returning players, alts, and all players, after waiting a certain amount of time, can just catch up to us from what we did on the previous tier, what we did on the previous season. And that's just going to have to be the way it is. I think most players are already okay with that because of what I said. Everything's already invalidated anyway. Most players realize that it's a seasonal game now. And since you're not going to go away from it being a seasonal game, this is the better solution, right? You either go all in or you go all out. And in this case, I'm just saying you're like 95% in, and you just need to go the last 5% to go in there. So what is the time frame? I don't know what the time frame is. Obviously, you can't have it on the launch of a patch, right? Because then that creates all kinds of issues with just like, okay, everyone just make a druid real quick, and we're all going to play Boomkin because we can just catch up immediately the day of the patch, and then we just go into the raid with 15 Boomkins or something because they're really powerful, and everyone can do it for free, basically. And that creates a bunch of issues with balancing and all kinds of crap like that. So you do have to wait some amount of time. What I would do is I would look at the data, whatever data that they do have, and see like when the average item level of players tends to go up, like at least 6 or 10 item levels or something like that, whatever item level number you judge as worthy from the previous tier. So if that's 4 weeks, I think it's probably going to be like 6 to 8 weeks would be my guess, is when the item level increases enough to kind of be like, okay, now you can just get everything from the last patch. So we kind of have this in a way in 9.1.5. You can buy all your conduits by the Flight Master and Oribos and get them up to 200 immediately. You ding 60, go up there. I think you might have to do a couple things with your Covenant first. Go up there, get the thing. All your conduits are 200. Now at this point in the game, it should be 226. That was the max at 9.1. We're in 9.1.5. Whether that should have been 4 weeks after 9.1, whether that should have been 8 weeks after 9.1, whether that should be with a 0.5 patch, we can even go all the way to there. We can have that discussion. But at some point, these conduits need to be 226 right now. that you're unlocking for free, because that's what they maxed out on in the last season. Now, if you want to say, well, that was mythic and not everyone's doing mythic, well, the same thing can be said about the heroic loot for the next tier as well. So I don't think that's really a good argument. Again, if you're going to go 95% in, just go 100% in. 5% more, and you make everyone's life a little bit easier. And the same thing just goes with everything. So in this patch, it'd be conduits, renown. Since renown is no longer a thing, people have already said this on Twitter. There should be a level 80 renown thing in patch 9.2. Again, 4 weeks in, 6 weeks in, 8 weeks in, however long it is, there should be an 80 renown token to max out your renown in 9.2. And that's just the way it should be going forward. If they go all in on this, I think it's going to make everyone's life easier. It's going to quell a lot of the complaining, because people are going to know, okay, I'm coming back to the game. I'm just going to wait 4 weeks into this patch, and I'm going to be golden. I'm going to be back caught up with everyone else and having a good time. That's when everyone else is just playing for fun anyways. Like, the world first is over. Everyone's kind of got an idea of what the metas are, stuff like that. People are already, on the high end of arena, and I think it's just good for everyone. So that's my diatribe on this. It's something I'm very passionate about. Again, it affected me just like it affected Venruki, just like it might have affected you or one of your friends. And something I wish that they would they're so close. Just go a little bit further. Commit to the seasonal thing, and don't worry about invalidating me as a player, because I'm the type of player that you're worried about invalidating. I know that, and I'm over it. I'd rather have people be able to come back and play and have fun than have my feelings hurt a little bit. So yeah, that's it for this video. As always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out so much. And other than that, everybody have a good one.